This video is Orders of Protection. What is domestic abuse as defined under the Family Protection Act? Brought to you by the New Mexico Judiciary and presented by Rosemary Traub and Sarah Coffey. The information presented in this video does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. All information in this video is for general informational purposes only. Information in this video may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. Viewers of this video should contact an attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter. Only your individual attorney can provide assurances that the information contained herein is applicable to your particular situation. The views expressed in this video are those of the author or authors only.
Hello, my name is Rosemary Traub. I am a domestic relations hearing officer at the 2nd Judicial District Court in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm here with Sarah Coffey, who is an attorney at New Mexico Legal Aid, and we are going to present information to you regarding seeking an order of protection on your own. First, I'd like to just give you an introduction about myself. I've been involved in domestic violence legal work since about 2004, and I'm very committed to it. It's my passion, and I'm lucky enough to be doing exactly what I want to be doing. And I hope that we can provide you with some tools today to assist you if you need to file an order of protection. Sarah?
So as Rosemary said, my name's Sarah Coffey. I am one of the domestic violence attorneys here at New Mexico Legal Aid. I am one of the attorneys that staff our domestic violence helpline. And I want to start out by kind of talking about what is domestic abuse. So it's hard because there are so many different ways of looking at domestic abuse. There is domestic abuse that you are dealing with in counseling sessions and social work. And then there's domestic abuse that is as defined by the law. And the law can be a little bit more narrow than what individuals think of when they hear domestic abuse. So the first thing is domestic abuse is something that has happened to you from a household member. Now, household member does not mean what logically you think it means. This person is not required to live in a home with you. They also are not required to live in a home with you to be a household member. A household member is very specifically a spouse or former spouse, a parent, a present or former step-parent, a present or former parent-in-law, a grandparent-in-law, a child, a stepchild, a grandchild, a co-parent. So if you have a child with another person, that other person is a co-parent. And anyone you have what's called a continuing personal relationship with. That also is a very specific definition. So a continuing personal relationship is a dating relationship. So if you live with your aunt is not a household member because she does not meet the definition in the law of what a household member is. So household members, if they act in an abusive way towards you, you can get an order of protection against them. Now, an abusive manner is called domestic abuse. So an act of domestic abuse can include physical harm, severe emotional distress, bodily injury or assault, a threat causing imminent fear of bodily injury, criminal trespass, criminal damage to property, repeatedly driving by your home or your workplace, telephone harassment, strangulation, suffocation, or harm to children in one of the manners I just talked about. So specifically, there are a couple of things I want to point out there. So if someone has hit, kicked, pushed, strangled, has physically hurt you, that is going to be domestic abuse. If someone has threatened to hurt you or threatened to kill you, that can be domestic abuse. Emotional abuse is one of those things that is discussed a lot. Emotional abuse is not one of the things on here. It is severe emotional distress. So that's a little bit higher of a standard and has to have actually caused you personally severe emotional distress. You have to be able to explain that. Rosemary, you want to go ahead and talk about some things that are not domestic abuse and explain the non-household member domestic abuse.
Okay. So what is not by itself, what I'm going to talk to you about is not domestic abuse. Now, it may be that these types of behaviors are occurring along with other things, but by themselves, they're not domestic abuse. Examples are name calling, and there is a lot of nasty name calling that goes on. That by itself is not domestic abuse. In addition, yelling and screaming just by themselves are not a domestic abuse. Also, things like removing money from an account, stealing, $50 from the dresser by the bed, arguing without something else, generalized threats like just wait, I'm going to do something, or I'm going to get you. Okay, that's generalized. And what Sarah was talking about are very specific forms of abuse under the law. Another one that comes up is, which is not delineated in the law, which is pet abuse. But pet abuse may be simply what happened and led to, for example, severe emotional distress. And so I'm not saying that these things aren't abusive, because they are abusive types of behaviors, but there needs to be more than that for them to qualify as domestic abuse under the law to be considered for an order of protection. Now, there are two situations in which someone can file for an order of protection where there's not a requirement that the person be a household member, and those are stalking and sexual assault. Sexual assault is something that is obviously based on common sense, and stalking is much harder to determine. And many people feel that harassing kinds of behaviors are automatically stalking, and they are not. Stalking requires someone pursuing a pattern of conduct. A pattern of conduct is more than one occasion, and it's directed at a specific person, putting them in reasonable fear of one of five things: sexual assault, death, bodily harm, confinement, or restraint. And so people often file alleging stalking, and what actually can be proven in court is much less than that. So just a heads up on that. But again, in instances where stalking is alleged and sexual assault is alleged, the person does not have to be a household member, as Sarah defined. And I want to give you I also want to lay out where the situation where it would not be stalking, but would require a civil restraining order. I'm going to just give you a hypothetical. Your neighbor 5 houses down walks by your house and stops in front of your house, screaming and yelling obscenities, throwing rocks and empty cans and garbage, all over your lawn, and you go out and ask them to leave. Okay, that's not stalking if it's a one-time incident. If that happened repeatedly, or this person did other things and it put you, in fear of one of those 5 things I mentioned, it might turn into stalking. But by itself, as I described it, it is not stalking. Doesn't mean you couldn't do anything about it. You could ask for a civil restraining order because there's no household member and there's no household member relationship there. So that is just to give you a frame of reference about what is and is not stalking and what might instead be grounds to ask for a civil restraining order.
So why would you want to file for an order of protection? I want to explain to you what an order of protection can actually do for you. First off, I want you to know that to file for an order of protection, so if you are being abused in one of these domestic abuse scenarios, either by a household member or being stalked or sexually assaulted by a non-household member, you can file for an order of protection at no cost. Orders of protection do not have a filing fee associated with them. You go to the court and you file it. It will not cost you any money. So if you are wanting to look for a way to keep a person away from you who is abusing you and keep them from contacting you, orders of protection can tell a person that they cannot go to your home, that they cannot be within so many feet of your home. They cannot call you, they can't text message you, they can't find you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of the new things that could come out between now and then. They can't contact you. So that means it kind of creates a little bubble around you that this person can't penetrate, and it makes it a crime for them to talk to you. So if you have someone who is abusing you that you want to get away from you, an order of protection might be a good step for you. There are a couple other things that orders of protection can do for you, and this includes getting some what's called restitution. So let's say that in a fit of rage, your partner punches a bunch of holes in the wall and breaks down a door. Well, potentially the court might make them pay for all of the damage that they caused. So you could potentially get money to fix things that were broken or injured because of the domestic abuse itself. If you have children or property with the person you're seeking an order of protection against, the court can issue a special thing called a custody and property attachment. This is something that would only be in effect for 6 months. It gives you enough time to get to the proper court and file for long-term solutions. But the court can make custody decisions, so who gets to make legal decisions for the child and who gets to see the child, what a visitation schedule would be for a period of up to 6 months. The court can also arrange for child support for up to 6 months through an order of protection. They can also decide who gets to use certain property. They cannot decide who owns the property through the order of protection process, but they can give use of the property through that. So these are all additional things that you might be able to have the courts help with if you are being abused. So these are kind of reasons to reach out and see if an order of protection might be the right solution for you. If you have questions about whether or not you should file for an order of protection, whether or not what's happening to you would be considered domestic abuse, and kind of getting on a path forward to getting out of the situation you're in, you can always call New Mexico Legal Aid's Domestic Violence Helpline. The Domestic Violence Helpline is at 1-877-974-3400. Once again, that's 1-877-974-3400. And that number, you'd be able to speak to an attorney to see if they can give you some advice.